Welcome to the Childcare Genius Podcast, the world's leading authority on childcare marketing, mindset, expansion, and profitability. Each episode will feature interviews with the brightest minds in the childcare industry to guide you into becoming a smarter business leader. Our hosts have opened 10 schools while raising 5 children. They are certified business coaches and are the top-selling childcare business book authors of all time. This episode is sponsored by Childcare Genius Marketing. Let Childcare Genius Marketing help you get fully enrolled and fully staffed. Visit childcaregenius.com for more details. Let's welcome to the Childcare Genius Podcast our hosts, Brian and Carol Dupre.
Hello, welcome to the Childcare Genius Podcast.
We're your hosts, Brian and Carol Dupre. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've got an action-packed episode. We just absolutely love this couple. We have so much in common with them. They're both military, former military, so are Carol and I. We have a lot of similarities in our life and our stories. Been married close to about the same amount of time. We just have a lot in common with this couple, and I think you're really going to enjoy their story, especially how they got into the childcare business. It's an emotional story and very heartfelt, and I think you're gonna fall in love with them like we have. So get ready. Before we get started, though, I think we need to tell them one thing.
What?
We still have a couple tickets left for our Childcare Genius Live conference. And if you haven't bought your ticket yet, shame on you.
We'd love to see you.
We've been talking about it every week. Come on, what's holding you back? It's the world's most advanced childcare conference, the only childcare conference you need to attend this year. And who doesn't want to come to Vegas? I mean, warm temperatures. They've been stuck in their house all winter, because of cold. You got warm temperatures. You've got pools. You go swimming. You got a shark tank. You can swim with sharks. You don't
great company.
Great people.
A lot of great owners will be there,
and you're going to get at least $1 million worth of information. And we're going to guarantee you that if you just by day 2, if you haven't been the best conference you've ever been to, I'll give your money back. So that's a pretty good guarantee. This is going to be an amazing conference. You got $1 million worth of information. I'm doing a couple different sessions. Carol's speaking. We got 14 speakers, I believe. And it is the world's most advanced childcare conference. Go to childcaregenius.com, go under the conference tab, and say, I'd like to buy tickets, Childcare Genius Live. And go ahead and buy them today. Don't wait. Don't procrastinate. You can pause the podcast and go do it right now. And then come back and then hit the play button. All right. Now that you bought the tickets, thank you so much for buying your tickets. Let's get back on with the podcast.
Let's get Paula and Chris on the line.
Hi, Paula and Chris. Welcome to Childcare Genius Podcast. How are you guys doing today?
Oh, we're doing very well today. Thank you so much. We're celebrating our school's 5th anniversary today. So thank you.
5 years. Congratulations. Always a big feat. I can think of 128 years ago to our 5-year anniversary. At least it feels that way sometimes.
Right.
We're close to 30 years now. So
Wow.
5 years have been a long time. We never even thought about anniversaries. We just kind of surviving in the early days. But that's exciting news. So where are you guys located at?
Oh, we are in New Braunfels, Texas.
Which is where in relation to big cities?
We are closer, just north of San Antonio, really kind of in between San Antonio.
About halfway between Austin and San Antonio. Yeah. So a little closer to San Antonio, but traffic-wise about the same. So
Joe and I have been to San Antonio, a nice part of Texas. Good food down there, and a really nice river area. Just a really nice city.
Yes, it is.
And warm, I hear, for winter. It was 88 degrees in your area last week. That's crazy for February.
Just 2 days ago.
Yes, and now we're back down in the high 50s. So, yeah.
Wow, definitely high change of winter.
Yeah,
you go from 88 to 50. We go from 7 below to 12 above. So we have a wide range too, I like yours better. All right. So can you tell our audience a little bit about each of your background and what you did before you got in the childcare business?
We both were in the military. both in the Air Force. I went in mostly right after high school. And I was a ground radar systems technician. Did about 9 years active duty, a couple years in reserves, and then I got an opportunity with a company called Intuitive. Was able to take technical background, and I was with them for about 14 years working on surgical robotic systems. So completely different from what we're doing now with childcare, but having that background does help. So we do a lot of our own maintenance at the school. And just been doing this, like I said, 5-year anniversary. So
that's where we met. Like Chris was saying, I was a jet engine mechanic in the military, and then did almost 4, got out, and then him and I both did the reserves too. Used my GI Bill, and I got my degree in finance. And then I did about 7 years as an auto adjuster for about 3 different insurance companies.
Interesting. Well, I think one reason we resonated when we met you guys, because us being both military and you both military, we were in the Navy because we couldn't pass the Air Force entrance exam because you guys were so much smarter than us. That was a compliment. We always respected the Air Force because I think you guys take care of families very well.
They as a whole, yeah.
It's been good.
Yeah, but I know a lot of I still have friends with them, a lot of old Navy guys, and I remember their training being top notch too, though. So
Navy was good, but they're not too family oriented when they send you on a boat for 6 months.
No, that was the same
true.
complaint they had. They're like, training was great. I'm gone a long time.
Yeah. I was stationed in Iceland with a bunch of Air Force guys, and their barracks was always nicer than our housing was always nicer, and we're a little jealous of the Air Force. We called them the Fly Boys. Weren't many Fly Girls, sorry, Paula, but back then where we went, but they were definitely a good bunch. So appreciate both of your service. We both had about the same amount of service we had 18 years between us, and you guys very similar. So I think we have a lot in common, and both ended up in a child care business. Why did you pick the childcare business? Like, what got you led into that? I mean, we got your backgrounds now. Transition us now to, hey, I'm going to go buy a childcare franchise.
Well, we've always been interested in getting business. We've looked at different things, but we had a life-changing event in 2013. Paula and our son were in a severe car accident. And it happened to be on the way to a childcare center that was in a different town, because at the time in Braunfels, it was very small, kind of small, very small centers. And we had come from Houston, and we'd been in Kids Are Kids. And we wanted something that was more on that scale, looking for curriculum and whatnot. So we wound up going to more of a corporate childcare center that was in a town on her way to work. And with that accident, it kind of shaped us. We went through, we still do some degree, but that was well over a decade ago, but it kind of changed us. And so we really sat down and talked about it. And Paul was like, I want to bring something like Kids Are Kids into Braunfels, because if we had that, maybe the accident may not have happened, or we would have had, something that was closer, more convenient with the curriculum, with the way the Kids Are Kids building is, those type of things. And the company that I was at was a very good company to be at. And we got blessed when the stock really took off. So we had an opportunity to take that and put it in something. So instead of spending it, we sat down and talked about it quite a bit. And she was very passionate about it. So we were like, let's go for it. So, and that's how it started 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, about 5 years ago. Yeah.
All little over 5 years ago. I think when you have something that changes your life, when your son goes from being a neurotypical, normal, preschooler to a child that, literally has to restart learning how to walk, talk, swallow, breathe, again, really changes everything in your life. And you would do anything for your children. And I think with us getting into childcare, or just getting into a business in general, really, our son was our why. Like, why are we doing this for our children? And I think at the end of the day, that means the most to me is one, being able to provide for my community, and then two, being able to provide for my family.
Thank you for sharing that really amazing story. It's amazing how we've seen so many different and talked to hundreds of different people who had a pivot point in their life that totally changed the trajectory of not only their life, but around everybody, like every family that you care for was changed by that one incident too. Like you changed the trajectories of other people's paths going forward as well. So it's amazing how things happen in that way. So thank you so much for sharing.
Absolutely.
Can you tell us about your school and why it's unique?
Yeah, absolutely. I think some ways it's unique is we were the first childcare franchise to come to New Braunfels. And I think at the time, no one, like Chris was saying, everyone was smaller centers, smaller locally owned centers. And so coming to New Braunfels was a huge thing, that we were on the front page news of the local paper, and people were just really curious. And when I put my sign out, oh my gosh, I think I had about 100 inquiries. It was just crazy. We are the largest in terms of size, building size in New Braunfels for a childcare center. I think what makes us unique is we're on-site owners. We're very involved in the business. We care very much for, our families and our staff and providing for our community. We're always looking for ways to improve our programs and offerings. That is something that I don't know if, every owner is like that, but Chris and I take that very personally. And we strive to provide the best, care and education for the kids that go to our school. We offer pre-literacy programs, handwriting programs, social emotional skills, and we offer a lot of training opportunities for our staff as well. We are a Texas Rising Star 4-star school, and we are always working on, mentoring our teachers as well. We have secure camera access for our parents to glimpse in during the day. I think that's important to have that transparency, and they can kind of see what their kids are doing throughout the day. It's great. We have glass interior walls, which helps with transparency, supervision, and it also helps with the children when they transition to the next classroom up. They can see kind of what's going on in the classroom. It makes it more familiar for them. Very, very awesome to have. And then also the glass provides this nice natural light in the classrooms. Doesn't feel so cavernous and dark. Usually light and airy in there. And then ultimately, Chris and I strive to provide, have our teachers and our admin staff provide a very warm and welcoming environment where we're positive and nurturing to all of our kids in our school.
The other thing I'd ask too, I'm not sure if other places do it or not, but I know one thing that we strive to do and accommodate is, a lot of younger children, they need sometimes some sort of like therapy intervention, whether it's speech or social skills play. So if there's a child there and the family is trying to get therapies, it's very hard for working families. We know that from experience with 9.5 years of therapy that we went through with our son. So we let them work with therapists that will come to the school so their child can still get therapy. So we do have off and on where like speech therapists are coming in or play therapists will come in. We talk with the parents schedule it, and we accommodate it. So
yes,
we've
we've also done some assessments as well. So we had a local company here that does home health for OT, PT, and speech. And we parents had to, of course, sign a permission form, but they came in and assessed the children as well. We think that's very important to start early. Therapy for children early on is a huge game changer for them. So it's very, very near and dear to us.
Because there's a lot of parents that they want to do that stuff, but with the way our current, workforce dynamic is in this country, sometimes it's very challenging to step away. So it's a space that we wanted to provide. That was one of our whys, I would say, with that.
We also provide a lot of family engagement as well. I think that's very important. And then maybe just a craft night, maybe a bingo night, maybe a Valentine's little, dance party. We like to provide those. About once a month, we do those for our parents. And I think that provides us a family-friendly environment where they have that engagement.
I love that. One thing you said I wanted to highlight, because I've been to several kids locations. I love the glass walls that you're talking about. And if you're listening to this and you want to create, you're in the process of building a school or creating a school or expanding, glass walls instead of mortar, the plaster, what do they call it now? Sheetrock walls is so much better to look inside a classroom for transparency. I love how you say they could see the older kids' classroom and wonder what they're doing. It was the coolest center I've been in when I toured kids locations. So that's probably one of your biggest selling points when you give a tour. Is that right?
It is.
Yeah,
It is probably
when
pretty
it's
high up there.
toured, a lot of them comment on how nice and open, natural light, has a very just warm feeling. So it works out well.
Yeah, providing that extra layer of transparency is huge.
So what are some roadblocks you faced? I know 5 years ago you opened your school, and I could do the math. So what are some roadblocks you faced when trying to grow your school in the early days?
Oh, we opened 1 month before the COVID pandemic. I went from having 85 children to 25 overnight. And I know I'm not the only one who's dealt with that, but when you're just open, that's scary. That's really scary. Just unique challenges in opening a franchise in a community that's never had one before. That also, was some challenges to as a roadblock. We came in with business sense, but I had to learn the childcare aspect really fast. And, we made mistakes, and had to learn from them and turn them into lessons. We're like I said, we're always working on improving and growing, but when you make those mistakes early on, sometimes it takes a little longer to recover from them, depending on that mistake. But the best thing you can do is take that mistake and turn it into a lesson and hopefully don't make that mistake again.
Exactly.
Yeah, we pivoted
Yeah,
too.
sometimes I always say sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. There's no losses in business ownership. You turn your losses into future wins by learning from them and trying not to repeat the mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing we do with coaching is try to help you learn from other people's mistakes so you don't make them in the first place. And that's kind of the secret, because lessons can be expensive in the early days, and sometimes people run out of money before they run out of lessons learned. Thankfully, you guys were able to recover from that, but I can only imagine how scary that must have been when they said, "Oh, we're going to shut down for 15 days," which turned into 15 months.
Yes.
That was the decision to have me stay longer at my job.
Mhm.
So when it was like, we're going to shut down, because at first we were like, oh, we'll exit in 6 months. 6 months became 3.5 years. So,
So he stuck around for a little while, just for that reason.
But as we say, you do whatever it takes, right?
Right.
Yes.
We're business owners. We don't have the luxury of just crawling into a hole and not doing it. You have to figure it out.
you do.
And we've had many of those figure out moments, and whether to keep a school open that's underperforming, or to expand, or to let this teacher go. There's so many decisions you make that you question yourself sometimes, and so many struggles, but at the end it's so worth it when you see success.
Yes.
And you guys are only 5 years in, so you guys are still you're still in your honeymoon in the childcare phase, and you're still learning and growing. And that probably leads to Carol's next question very well.
What are some of your long-term goals for your business?
There's always the enrollment, right? So you always want to continue the enrollment. We've had a nice slow steady after we've started some things. I would say the coaching's definitely helped with that.
Yes.
More intentionality. As a business owner, you tend to get pulled in a lot of directions, right? And oftentimes you feel guilty for not prioritizing them all at the same level. But you're doing yourself a disservice when you also do that. So you need to be more intentional. And with that, we've been able to work on the growth of the school. So we'd rather have more deliberate, intentional growth with that. We've also improved our education that we've been offering. So that's always an ongoing process. And then the community involvement. I'll let Paula talk a little more on that one.
Yeah, so I want to work on just increasing our community involvement, getting out there in the community more. I know we do that with parent engagement to some degree, but really wouldn't mind, maybe getting to know some of these charities, in the community, and just and getting ourselves involved with maybe other child programs in the community that help, the children in our community at the end of the day. Some of my long-term goals for our preschool is really just when you go from one classroom to another classroom, you have that consistency. And it's not always the easiest because, if you guys also know, there's still staffing challenges out there. We're still having to deal with and running into, finding, staff that already has been in childcare before or was a preschool teacher. Sometimes you're hiring people that are outside of the preschool, realm, and you're training them. They have great soft skills. They definitely have your core values, and you're having to train them. So you're having to create, and show them how to become consistent in the classroom. And so that's my long-term goal, is those little things done consistently produce extraordinary results. So that's really what I'm looking at long-term and short-term. I think also, just like any business owner, long-term goals also includes an exit strategy. Is it going to be, are you selling your business in the future, or do you have some sort of succession plan, long-term? It's something that every business owner should think about as well. You grow your business, you get it to a really good point, it's really successful, then what do you do after that? So, I think that's in every business owner's, long-term goal as well, is to exit on a high. So
Yeah, and knowing when that time is, and don't stay too long, and don't leave too early. It's like when to sell stocks, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Same thing. You try to sell it high and hope you made the right move. And but you know what? As you move on, our strategy has changed over the years, and it'll pivot and change and evolve. And when grandkids come, things change. And we figured we'd be in a warm climate right now, and thanks to grandkids, we're stuck with snow because we love them too much, I guess. So yeah, your plans do change a little bit. But I guess that's the fun part about life, not knowing what the future might hold. But those are excellent goals on your part. So let's pivot a little bit and talk about some really nice warm climate. So you guys attended our leverage conference in Jamaica last year. We got to, fun in the sun on the beach in beautiful Montego Bay, Jamaica. Tell us a little bit about this conference, what you got out of it, and would you recommend this conference to others? We're going to Cancun this year in the fall. Why should people come to that conference?
This is our first conference we ever attended that's outside of the franchise system. So, so it's very unique. We love that there was no sales pitches. We love the small, intimate, forum. A lot of collaboration between owners. We liked that everyone was so inviting. Everybody was so willing to share what was going on in their centers and what they were doing, and what we were facing as a whole. One thing I liked about it was sometimes you feel like it's lonely at the top, right? And sometimes you feel like you're really isolated, and you're like, maybe it's me, maybe I'm the one having the problem. And then when you go to these conferences, not that misery loves company, but it does help you realize, okay, I'm not alone. So let's work together to not, be in that spot or whatever it may be. So I love that portion of it. Made some friends, really enjoyed Montego Bay. It was beautiful, beautiful. Got to snorkel for the first time. So
yeah, for myself, it was kind of expand upon what Paula was saying. For myself, it was just kind of getting a wide breadth of other perspectives and insight onto childcare. Coming from the type of jobs that I did, it's been a little hard for me to transition with just kind of the typical, sometimes having a sales pitch. For me, it was the first time where I felt like, hey, I actually can dive in a little bit into the industry and understand it, not just from the front end operation aspect of it, but more of where my comfort level is where like the backside, the systems, the processes, understanding what in the background makes the operations better. So that was a lot for me.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. It was great having you there.
Yes. What are some of your secrets in working your business together as a couple?
Trial and error.
Yeah. I think we divide and conquer.
Yeah.
We are very opposite personalities. Mm-hmm. So, and if you lean into that in the right way, it pays off. And sometimes you misfire, but when you start hitting those clicks on that, then you start getting smoother at doing the things that are kind of when I say lane, I'm not saying that you should stay in your lane, but more in your wheelhouse, more in your skill set. So she's more on the front end. You know, she kind of likes the wheeling and dealing and talking to people, and I'm more than happy to let her have that. So I'd rather be in the backside, making sure things are working right, you know, and she does too. It's just that's where I'm more comfortable. I would prefer being on the backside. Hey, getting to know ProCare better, making sure things in the business, you know, in the building and the business are running properly, working right. So we are very hands-on in the facility. And so what we've learned is if that's your strength and you're good at that, then that's where you're going to focus and just keep me abreast on in case I have to plug in and vice versa.
Yeah. So, playing off the strengths and weaknesses is very important. You know, what areas do you thrive in? It's very, in like he was saying, having the different task lists of like, hey, I stay and do this, you do that. Of course, there's going to be some cross functionality, but staying in your lane, which we've had to learn, and we're not the best at it all the time, just like any, you know, business partners who are couples as well. But we have learned that it is important to stay in your lane because at the end of the day, they have a job function that they're really, really good at. And I have a job function that I'm good at. I'm willing to stay in my lane, and, you know, we work together in that regard.
Awesome. Yeah, it's challenging at first because this was your first time actually working side by side for the last 5 years. And I love that term misfiring, Chris. I might have to steal that. You might use that in the future. I love that because you're exactly right. Carol and I are opposites too, but we used to misfire a lot. not so much anymore, but I love that term.
Not me.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I forgive me. I used to misfire a lot.
And really, it's the communication piece, right? It's being able to communicate effectively and efficiently. And sometimes, I mean, I hate to say it, we do hurt each other's feelings, you know, right? And it's just being able to regroup and come back together and just hopefully, you know, get to the bottom of it. And not every day, you know, is going to be a perfect day. You know, you have some days that are, and they're wonderful when they are, but you have some days, like Chris said, you do misfire.
I think faith has a lot to do with it too. Faith in the other person on what when they say they've got it, you got to let them have it. Yeah. You know, so,
Chris and I have been married for almost 20 years. So we've had a lot of, you know, stuff that we've gone through as a couple. Yep. So I think that helps us, you know, grow stronger, you know, also operating our business as well.
100%. I love that. Well, thanks for sharing that because it's definitely a challenge sometimes. And when you look at, Chris, you said you'd never been to another conference outside of your franchise. And I'm sure you probably see a lot of couples working together inside the franchise, but in normal childcare business conferences, there's hardly any men at conferences in traditional childcare conferences. One thing you'll see at ours, though, we have a lot of couples working together at our conferences. And I think it's because Carol and I kind of lead it, so it helps that way. And we love to help people work even better together. And we give you a lot of tools and tips for that. And we'll kind of make it better. We also
have a lot of men that come that don't work in the business with their wives, but they want to learn more about it.
And that's a key too, because if you can understand it, I think you have less misfiring if you understand what they're going through and you don't fly off the handle when they want to close early, because we look at things logistically and maybe they have more information than we have, which I'm guilty of, sometimes misfiring that way. So guys, if you had to do it all again, we're going to wrap it up now. So give you a magic wand. You could do it all over again. What would you do differently?
Not open a month before COVID.
Wait till after?
That was an absolute joke. Because you can't time it. I think it would be probably maybe build a school just a little bit smaller in size. Beautiful school. I think we could probably go with something a little bit smaller. If you know, kids are kids, they like building very big schools. I mean, some of them are 17,000 plus square feet. Ours is almost 14,000.
More storage.
Yeah, and some more storage. You can never have enough storage, it feels like, in a preschool, ever.
That's for sure.
Working on systems and processes from the beginning, the very beginning. It was challenging during COVID, though. I mean, I think all of us can agree who's been in childcare since COVID. that at the time, it was you were in survival mode.
It was exacerbated.
Yeah.
So inherently, whenever you start something new, whether it's a business, job, or anything, you're going to miss things in the beginning, right? That's amplified when you throw, kind of a wrench into it, kinks up the works, and so to speak. And so at that point in time, it's like you said earlier, survival mode, right? I've got to get through this, and I'm just going to do what I need to right now to get through that. So going to what she's saying, having that, it would have been nice to have a little more bandwidth for those system processes to be a little more developed before we opened. So that'd be a big one. So
I think also learning more about the internal aspects of childcare. It's one thing if you understand business aspects. Childcare is a whole different beast. You're dealing with governmental entities that oversee your business. You're dealing with local and federal as well, and then you're dealing with different teacher personalities, the way they teach and stuff like that. And you're dealing with parents and what they're looking for in a child care. What is their perception? And their perception is reality, right? So you really need to hone in on that. And then ultimately the care that you're providing for the children. I think one thing that I've learned is that you want to make sure when you have a family that's going on a tour, you want to make sure you're going to deliver on those aspects that you're talking about on those tours. And if you can't, that's not a good thing. At the end of the day, that's something that I have learned is that don't put the cart before the horse. And I think I've definitely learned that, and I've learned hard lessons from that. And I think every single day I wake up and I'm like, I have to tell myself success is not linear, because it does take intentionality, like Chris was saying. And if I had to do it all over again, those are probably some of the things that we would do.
Yeah, I mean, there's always, you said that hindsight this, hindsight that, but those would probably be the big ones. So
I think the great news is we've learned a lot as we've gone. We're going to continue to learn. We're going to continue to grow. And I think putting yourselves in uncomfortable situations helps propel that growth. You want to get out of that uncomfortability. So you want to grow. And it's okay. It's okay to do that. It's okay to have to sit in discomfort, because that's how the growth is on the other side of it. And I think if you keep that in mind, it'll help propel you forward. But I also think if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't just focus on my enrollment. I wouldn't just focus on those I would focus on more, and I did focus on it, but more intentionality on the quality of care, the quality of education, the quality of my teachers, the quality of consistency should have been paramount in the beginning. Granted, I was in survival mode during COVID, so it didn't help, but that's probably the biggest lessons I've learned.
The main reason we asked that question, and Carol and I are big on, you don't want to change the past, obviously, because anything you change in the past, you might lose what you have in the current, right? Mm-hmm. But the reason we asked that question is so somebody who's listening, who's just starting out, who's just buying that franchise, so 5 years from now, they're in a better position than you are, because maybe they learned from your lesson. So that's why we asked that question. Because maybe there's somebody out there right now that's where you're at in the business that answers that question with an exit that helps you as well. So we ask that every guest, what would you do differently to help? There's other guests out there that are listening very closely, and they're going to learn from that lesson. So thank you for sharing. And life begins at the end of your comfort zone, as John Maxwell says. And if you're listening to this and you don't like to be uncomfortable, well, you're not going to grow. And your business is going to stagnate. You need to get out of that comfort zone a little bit, or a lot of bit, and you're going to grow. And I want to thank Paula and Chris for taking time out of the busy lives to join our podcast today. You shared some incredible insights, some personal stories, and those stories are going to resonate with a lot of our audience. And thank you for taking that time today. And we hope you have a great, warm rest of the winter.
Thank you, Brian and Carol. We appreciate you having us on your podcast.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it very much.
Awesome. You guys have a good day. Bye-bye now.
You too.
I just love that couple.
You too.
Great interview. And such a great story.
Yeah.
And I love how they work together as a couple. And I love that term misfire. I'm going to use that from now on, because we've had a few misfires over the years.
Yes,
No, wait a minute. Let me rephrase. I've had a few misfires over the years. Your marriage would be perfect if it wasn't just for me, right? I'm the misfire. Boy, you look
So
absolutely
you're
beautiful
saying if
today.
I was married to myself, it would be a perfect marriage?
You look stunning today. Have I told you that, Timmy,
Thank
already?
you.
Doesn't
Okay.
she look amazing? Look at how beautiful my wife is. I'm just like the luckiest guy on the planet. Man, we're gonna cut this podcast short because the kids aren't at home, and Anyway, we have a lot of fun, don't we? We don't edit out, and we better conclude this episode while I'm still ahead. And thank you for tuning into the Child Care Genius podcast, and I hope you enjoyed it.
And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you won't miss a future episode of the Child Care Genius podcast. And we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Childcare Genius podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please do us a favor and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a future episode. Don't forget to visit our website at childcaregenius.com to see a list of services we offer to help grow your childcare business. Until next time, thank you for being a part of the Childcare Genius community.